Hello, Matt.
Hey, Bill, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you? I'm a little hoarse, so I'm sorry if it's tough to hear me today.
No problem. Is it allergies or worse?
I think it's just allergies. I think it's as soon as the sun broke out here in New England, everything clogged up, and that led to coughs. That leads to hoarse throat. So, but I'm persevering.
Well, power through, Bill, because you're about to enter a no-spin zone here.
Don't scare me like that.
So, a lot to talk. Well, not really. Medium amount to talk about this week. Where do you want to start?
Well, the president he's doing a series of town halls this week. And I just as an aside, I gotta think there's no president that's done more town halls than this one in history. I'd like to see Mark Miller at CBS give the stats on that. But the most ones being mentioned the most is the Facebook town hall, because anything that involves anything online always gets a certain amount of media buzz. And what I don't think has been talked about quite as much, that's been reported on a little bit, is to what degree the president's re-election campaign is going to differ from his original election campaign in terms of his online outreach. And I forget what article first mentioned it, but someone on the campaign said that in 2008, it was about getting people to your blog, to your website, and now so many people are on Facebook. You got to go to where the party is, and you can't spend extra effort getting them to come to your site. You got to go to where they are.
Makes sense. And that's what Sarah Palin. That's what Sarah Palin's done. She, I don't even think she has a blog.
Right.
She does it on Twitter. She does it on Facebook. And by the way, Ron Paul sort of tapped into that too. He didn't try to invent his own social networks. He utilized pre-existing ones. That was kind of innovative, actually, at the time. A lot of people were still thinking you had to build your own infrastructure.
Right. And there was some talk when the re-election was first announced, and it came with an online video and a Facebook app called Are You In?, which was a way that you could easily connect, easily tell your Facebook friends that you are signing up for the Obama campaign, and identify which one of your friends have not already signed on, and reach out to them directly and say, hey, I'm in, are you in? And that was sort of indicative about how they're trying to be innovative with Facebook and not just throw up a page and post notes on it. But there's a counterintuitive post from Mika Sifri at techpresident.com where he's arguing that people in the know, people in the online politics world know that Facebook is not the central battlefield, as he put it, but it's more about micro-targeting and trying to use online tools to really precisely identify who your hardcore volunteers are, who can knock doors for you, who can walk precincts for you. And going on to say that on the Republican side that Politico is the most advanced in this area, but that Republicans in general have not put in the level of investment and time into building up these types of infrastructures to compete with Obama. And saying so that Barack Obama's website is still going to be critical because they have all this. They have a 13 million email base in their BarackObama.com database, and even though there might be some drop off in enthusiasm, that's still far and above what any other Republican candidate's probably going to have.
Well, let me jump in, Bill, and say, general. I don't know. I don't know about Republicans versus Democrats, but I will tend to agree with Mika in the sense that, Facebook and Twitter, those are sexy, new-ish still to a lot of people, sophisticated, and they're the kind of things that are like the media are apt to write about. But I think he makes a good point that, especially if you look at like congressional races or Senate races, still the average person out there is not on. Well, they're certainly not on Twitter. They may be on Facebook, but they're certainly not on Twitter. And so while those things are very important, I think media elites tend to overestimate them. And I can tell you, congressional races out there, having the best website or the best Facebook presence is not going to get you elected. It's, did you call them? Did you knock on their door? Do you have the right voter mail. I mean, all those things still matter way more than the glamorous stuff that Facebook and Twitter and websites and all that. So that's a very good point. And the kind of technology that gets attention, that gets ink, isn't necessarily the kind of technology that wins local elections, certainly congressional elections, often Senate elections, and maybe can impact who wins a presidential election, because it's not really, it's a series of state elections. So I think he makes a good point there. I would not necessarily disagree with that.
And it's been noted, the Obama campaign, doesn't use Twitter very much. As you say, there's less folks on Twitter than Facebook. Mika makes the point that there is a behind-the-scenes integration. So it's not just being on Facebook, but getting a rich amount of data on your supporters that you can use. So he quotes one Democratic strategist saying, now Obama can query his list to send a message to every self-identified Democratic female 35 and older on Facebook with over 500 friends and get them to take action based on Republican attacks to destroy Planned Parenthood. Or cut their list based on self-identified male Republicans in New York City and send a message to them from a senator who may resonate, like Mike Bloomberg. So far, 125,000 people have given the Obama campaign permission to access their Facebook data. So that's the key thing. It's not just being on Facebook, but getting folks there to agree, hey, you can look at all of my private stuff. And the Politico campaign, which he's saying is the best Republican campaign so far, has only a tenth of that number. And then goes on to say that he's talked to Republican consultants that admit that they're behind the curve on this. And I know you're doing your own Matt Lewis primary.
Yeah. A really brilliant guy. A really brilliant guy gave me an idea to do that. So that's why I'm doing it.
I don't know who that guy is. But do you have as one of your criteria, online campaign expertise?
There's a new media component, but it's so broad that it encompasses like blogger outreach and really everything that you would think of with new media. Certainly this would be a subset of that. But look, I think that Tim Pawlenty, one of the reasons why he's winning the Matt Lewis primary is that he is doing all the little things right, all the blocking and tackling, hiring the right people, and presumably the right people will implement the right plans. And so, I think this is just one more reason why Pawlenty, stands to win. And by the way, all the attention paid to people like Donald Trump, for example.
Well, I was going to ask how you haven't done a primary edition since the Trump boom has occurred.
Yeah, I know.
Is he going to leap to the top of the Matt Lewis primary now?
I don't know. That's a great point. I need to redo it. I need to revisit it. I don't think but he might be in the middle. But I tell you where candidates like Trump, I think, lose, and it's going to be the really boring blocking and tackling stuff, right? So when you're in Iowa, you can't just run TV ads, and you've got to organize. You organize people. You visit them. You canvass neighborhoods. You say, are you for us, against us? Are you persuadable? That's how you do it. Sinners, saints, and savable is another way of looking at it. And if people hate you, you ignore them. You don't knock on their door again. You don't send them voter mail again. If people love you, then you don't need to persuade them. Presumably, if they're really locked in, you put them on your get out the vote list. You make sure that they actually turn out. You drag them to the polls. And then if people are persuadable, I'm not sure if I'm for Romney or Pawlenty, those are the people you spend time working. You have neighbors visit them. You really go out of your way to woo them. The candidate visits them. I mean, all those little things really matter. And places like Iowa and New Hampshire expect that kind of attention. And so a candidate like Trump, who thinks that he can just run TV ads or win a debate, is going to run into trouble in some of these early states. And that's where I think people like Pawlenty and Romney will probably fare better, will probably overperform even against other candidates. So anyway,
are you still are you flummoxed that Trump is doing as well as he is?
I am not surprised, but I'm probably saddened by it because it sort of implies that people are a little bit gullible, I think. I think that I understand his appeal if you knew nothing about the world, if you knew nothing about history, and if you knew nothing about the candidates, and if you entered a room and you could watch a camera with Donald Trump talking and Mitt Romney talking, or Donald Trump and name the Republican candidate, you would walk out of there saying Donald Trump is the guy. He's been successful in business. Why not? He could be, and he knows his stuff. He's conservative, whatever. The problem arises when you start introducing his positions and actions and writings over the past 3 decades. That's when you are presented with a real problem.
You and the Republican primary electorate's ready to anoint a single-payer healthcare advocate for its nominee?
Well, I think he's talked his way out of it. I mean, he's got a number of issues where he's on the wrong side of the issue. But, this also goes to something else, Bill, that we've been talking about probably for years now, which is people confuse toughness or confidence with ideology. I think conservatives, and I think liberals are probably the same way right now, there is this cult of machismo. And if somebody is confident and brazen and tough and willing to attack Obama, they are perceived as more conservative than somebody who is well read in Edmund Burke and worked in the Reagan administration and campaigned for Phyllis Schlafly against the ERA. If that person isn't as brazen, there's very little respect for a person's background or anything like that. It's really, are you tough today? In fact, you could have worked for Planned Parenthood 5 years ago. You could be whatever. You could have a very questionable conservative background. But if you were today calling Obama a socialist, then you're pretty good chance of winning. So I think the left. I think the left does the same thing. By the way, right now, it's just people want fighters right now.
Well, so the left, was in that mindset, in the beginning of the blogosphere in the, early part of the last decade, and that's why Dean, captured the fascination of so many bloggers. They seem to be the most pugnacious, at least mealy-mouthed. But it generally hasn't been difficult to find Republicans who are going to play the game that way.
I think you're absolutely right about Howard Dean, and I don't think that point has been made by that many people. I think you're absolutely right.
Howard Dean did not have the most liberal record as governor of Vermont.
He was actually, in some ways, pretty. Didn't he? The NRA liked him, didn't they?
Yeah, he always had a strong NRA rating, and he was very. He was a fiscal tightwad, and he had all sorts of battles with the left in Vermont. But because he threw punches right off the bat, and he opposed the war, which was the biggest issue of the day, as opposed to past record. People didn't dig too deep into his record and worried about that sort of thing. Not that I think that his record is somehow illegitimate, but there are definitely people who might have been more inclined to be suspicious from a liberal perspective of Dean that weren't because of those factors.
Yeah.
So the question now is Trump? I mean, Dean has kept a loyalty with certain people on the left to this day. Is Trump building something like that? I mean, is there any sense in the conservative blogosphere at this point? We've talked with this. I talked with you. I've talked with Kristen before, but I feel like it changes every week. I mean, are you starting to see conservative bloggers saying, you know what? I think Trump can do this, and no one else has proved their stuff, and Trump is kicking ass and taking names, or is the blogosphere saying, let's hope this gets over with really soon because he's going to embarrass the whole party?
No, I haven't seen anybody say that, but I tell you what, it would be smart if you were a sort of up-and-coming conservative blogger and you wanted to get some press, go do that. I mean, if you don't have any principles.
Which way? To be his cheerleader or to be his critic?
I think if you were jumped on the bandwagon, that would be a very shrewd marketing move.
You are the Trump blogger.
Yes. You could become, Adam Brickley, my former intern, was the Draft Palin website. Now that was done on principle, and he did it way before anybody knew who Palin was, but it still got him attention. I think it would be a smart move for a young up and coming blogger who wasn't terribly wedded, or you could always talk your way around it, saying the past is the past. These times call for someone who's tough and has business experience. There isn't a Ronald Reagan in this race anyway. But if you just came out strong for Trump, I think you could get some attention. I really do. I think you could get national exposure. So, somebody does it. Let's play this tape.
And I imagine at this point there's not a lot of, cheerleader blogging for any candidate right now.
No, there really
because
isn't.
There's a sense of
another good observation, Bill. In the past, just keep coming. You're right. In the past, there was. I haven't thought about it, but no, I think you're totally right. There's not a lot of cheerleader blogging out there, and maybe some of it is it's some of it may just be that the candidates are not terribly worth cheering, and some of it might also be that it became a bit transparent. I mean, there was some really embarrassing pro-Romney stuff last time around that was just really embarrassing. So
transparently,
just people
non-organic.
Well, just people who I don't even know if it wasn't. I mean, these might have been true believers, but it's like if you drink the Kool-Aid that much for somebody, then you might as well get a paycheck from them, because it doesn't matter what you lose your credibility as a legitimate analyst, right? Because everybody knows that you're for Romney or whomever, so what? What's to gain from doing it? I don't know. I just think it's more interesting. And look, if you really are a Romney fan, maybe don't tell everybody, and that way when you say something good about him, it won't be like, yeah, well, Joe Blow loves Romney though, So. But no, it's a great observation, Bill. I think I've not noticed it. It seems like there were a lot more. Part of it too, I think, is I think there are probably small bloggers out there who are doing this stuff. Just like regular folks who bloggers in the true sense that they work at the insurance company during the day and then they're for Mitch Daniels at night or whatever. But in terms of people who are at townhall.com or Hot Air or Weekly Standard or National Review, the more sort of professional bloggers. In the past, I think they did sort of pick a horse. A lot more of them did, and I think that ship, to overextend or use another analogy, that ship has sailed with a horse on board.
And there also doesn't seem to be there was a point where people were trying to draft Chris Christie.
Yeah.
Or Petraeus or whatever, and it seems like since all those folks have said, no, I'm not doing it, there doesn't even seem to be a person on the sidelines that everyone's in the bloggers clamoring around either. There just seems to be just a sense of passivity towards the whole race at this point.
I think you're right. It really sucks, man. And by the way, Bill, I've been giving you credit for coming up with some really good points today, but let me make an observation.
Okay.
Every time I'm on Blogging Heads, they come up with a title for the show, right? So it's like the such and such edition.
We don't do that. That is out of our hands.
Yeah, we don't do that, but I bet you...
Faceless bureaucrats at Blogging Heads do that for us.
I bet you in the past 2 years, the bureaucrats have picked something I said as the title for the show. I don't think you've gotten...
Probably true.
I don't think you've gotten a single title in the past 2 years. So I want you to say something that will be the title of this week's Blogging Heads. This week's The Weekend Blog.
I think I did get a Sugar Shack.
Sugar Shack.
Mention. I think I got that.
It could be Sore Throat Edition or...
it could be.
Out Pollen.
Too painful to listen to edition.
All right, so speaking of painful, let's talk about the left's attack on Matt K. Lewis. Because it ties in...
So going back to the Facebook forum, you did a post at your Daily Caller blog.
Yes.
Where you noticed that... excuse me. You noticed that the Facebook site went down temporarily, and there was a conservative group that was claiming credit for that.
Yes. True. All true. And not just temporarily, it was down for like a half hour, Bill, which is unbelievable. I've never seen
was this
Facebook...
during the town hall event itself or before?
No, it was hours before. The town hall event started at, I think, 4:45 Eastern Time. This was around noon. But they were taking questions.
So there was an influx of comments on the site ahead of time.
Exactly.
Or at least... This group was claiming that they fled the site with comments and took the site down.
Well, here's what we know. Though. We know the site came down. We know that Facebook was very evasive when when a reporter contacted them, asking them about it. We do know that this group, the conservative group For America, has almost 1 million friends or followers or likes or whatever we call them these days. And we do know that they were very prominent in terms of on the site. When I looked several times at the wall, and they were dominating the conversation on the wall. So that's what we know, and that is what I reported, including a quotes from their chairman, Brett Bozell, and another spokesman, Greg Mueller. And I reported that. I mean, those are all facts, and yet I've been called a liar by Bill, I think, your minions. I want you to call off your attack dogs now.
Well, Combiz at America Blog, whom I know, who's a friend of mine,
and doesn't know we're BFFs.
That might not know that. Might have thought twice if he did. But he has a post entitled "The Easily Debunked Lies of Matt K. Lewis," and he says, "You printed completely, without any verification, that the Facebook page of a right-wing group shut down the comment section of President Obama's Facebook chat."
I did no such thing. I did not say they shut it down.
Well,
I said the site went down, and they're claiming responsibility. In fact, I think it was that they're claiming they think they shut it down.
Right. Well, I mean, I think he's right in that you didn't verify the claim independently. You reported that a claim was
There is no way to verify if they shut it down or if Facebook. For all I know, Facebook was tweaking it in preparation. But I think that there is evidence to suggest they might have shut it down. Though they have more than 1 million followers, they were dominating the site at the time. And they claim they did it. They claim that, and then by the way, Brett Bozell, I mean, he might be an ultra-conservative by many people's view, but he is a respected conservative leader. This isn't just a Joe Blow. I mean, his dad was the actual guy who wrote Barry Goldwater's Conscience of the Conservative. He was his, ghostwriter or whatever. And so this is a legitimate conservative leader who's telling me that they sent out an email telling their almost 1 million supporters to post things, and 5 minutes later the site, the events page itself, to be specific, came down. And I just reported that. I don't think that makes me a liar. What I think the case is that the Daily Caller, and I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, but I'm drinking the venti coffee here. It's probably going to be the headline, by the way, Bill. I think they're worried that the Daily Caller is now driving stories into the mainstream media on a daily basis, and they're afraid of us.
Well, I think that's where I'll quibble with Combiz. He focuses ire towards you, when I think the ire belongs more at Jake Tapper at ABC, because he says, this is what Combiz wrote. The problem isn't that Daily Caller or Matt Lewis have any credibility discussing the power of a conservative group or new media, but that Lewis's story in the Daily Caller was picked up by the reporters, most notably Jake Tapper at ABC News. Now, I think the kind of stuff that you do, you're an opinion journalist and a commentator and analyst for a conservative site. You're not at a traditional news outlet. So it's one thing for you to just put up on a blog, hey, I'm passing along this claim from a conservative group on a conservative website.
Yeah, see, Bill, I appreciate your attempt to smooth things over, but I got to say, I think you're wrong. I mean, first of all, all right, go ahead and finish, and then I'll have my response.
It is bad professional reporting for someone at a traditional outlet like ABC to just take someone else's blog post and not do any independent reporting themselves before deeming it news. So my fault. Jake Tapper should then explore the story, see if the claim has merit, talk to Facebook, see what Facebook has to say. To just pass along what you had is bad reporting on his part. I think what you do is totally different and doesn't necessarily have to meet that kind of standard.
I think it's somewhat of a backhanded compliment that you've given me here. I mean, first of all, it is true that what I do is I am not a reporter. I try to sort of be like the 21st century version of Bob Novak, which is I do original reporting, but it's certainly mixed in with opinion and commentary. It's certainly not straight reporting, but I do break news, and I do consider myself a reliable source, and I do hold myself to standards. And it's not just bullshit that I just come up with. I just don't take people at their word. So I push back a little bit on that. Also, as you know, for 2 years I wrote for AOL's Politics Daily. So, although I'm clearly a conservative, anyway, read into that what you will. I think what Jake Tapper did was entirely appropriate, and I would urge people. I'm sure we'll link to it. Go to what he wrote. It's at the end of the story, I think that the way he sourced it was entirely appropriate. But let's leave it to others to decide. But anyway, this guy's driving a wedge between us, Bill. I don't like to see that.
Well, Jake Tapper actually took ComBiz's piece and updated his piece with it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm just looking at this right now.
Tell me what does he say?
So he says that America blog ComBiz claims that Mueller's a spokesperson for this conservative group, that his claim couldn't possibly be less credible. We still haven't heard back from Facebook as to what happened. So it's worth noting that there are many skeptics about For America's claim. For America is that group.
Right.
The larger issue I was trying to make is that the accessibility and interaction of social media have a flip side. So it said to Jake Tapper here. I think he's just doing it in a blog post himself.
Right. Well,
I don't think he ran out on television and reported it. So maybe you could argue that his standards, what he posts on his blog and what he posts, when he reports on TV, are different.
Well, let me say this. First of all, the fact that he sort of responded to them shows the power of new media. They're pushing back again. I stand by my story. And I've written an updated post pointing out that everything I report I think is entirely appropriate. But let me also say this: forget the claim. Put aside the claim that For America brought down the site. There's another issue here, and that is that For America has almost 1 million followers who were inundating and dominating Obama's Facebook page. That alone, I think, is newsworthy. That alone is an interesting story. That Obama has this Facebook town hall. And every time I looked throughout several hours, looked at the Facebook wall, conservatives were dominating him, oftentimes using boilerplate language provided by For America. I think this group could be for real, and I think they're building an army of online activists. That's a story that I think is worthwhile and is perhaps being overshadowed by questions of whether or not they brought down Facebook. Look, Facebook, again, they've not, I've tried to make additional calls to people I know there. They've not returned my calls. They gave us a very bland and I think evasive statement. Obviously, they're not returning Jake Tapper's call. What's up? Why did the site come down? It would have been, if they had just returned our call, they could have said, look, we were testing something. It wasn't For America.
So you did call Facebook?
Yes. A reporter here called Facebook before my post even went up, and I've posted the statement today. It was essentially, the site's up now, and we're very excited to have President Obama be on Facebook. It was something like that. It was. They
didn't explain what caused the outage.
It was completely milquetoast, and I know someone else over there, and I put in a call to this person, and they have not returned my call. Look, they're obviously not returning Jake Tapper's calls either. So, what happened?
But that's important. You did. Daily Caller made the attempt to come to Facebook and do additional reports.
Well, we also called the White House, and they just were like, "It's not our bag. It's not our deal. We're not going to comment on it." Too. All these things. Again, we pride ourselves in getting stories right. And if Facebook had told me, "Look, we knew this was a big deal, so we were testing some things out." And the site came down, or the page, not the site, just this one particular page, which, by the way, was 4 or 5 hours before the event started. We were testing it out. Somebody hit the wrong button. I don't know. It wasn't For America. I would have written that.
Well, let's keep in mind here, if you're Facebook, that's not a story you want someone to write.
Right. No,
you don't want to explain, it wasn't that these folks screwed up our program, we screwed up ourselves.
No,
they might be inclined to tell you that story.
Yeah, there's a disincentive for them to do it, but my point is that the left is calling me a liar for what I believe was a completely legitimate story that I 100% stand behind, and merely reporting the facts. And I think it's a partisan ideological thing. So there.
Well, I think there is there is a inclination in general to shoot the messenger on certain things online, because media criticism is sort of kind of the mother's milk of a lot of blogging.
Right.
And a lot of folks on the left were really tough on Mark Amender and called him a stenographer for the White House. When he was reporting things that were coming from the White House, he would say so.
Right.
He wasn't putting in his own words. He would say, "White House sources tell me X," and you can then take or leave it. You can believe it or not because you know where the source is coming from. He's not necessarily telling you this is unquestionably true because they told me it. And in some ways, I thought the way Amberder did it when he was at the Atlantic and the National Journal was better than the way the New York Times might do it sometimes. Because the Times would do it in a way that suggested this was from an oracle of truth. And the way Amberder did it, I thought it was more clear where the sources were coming from.
Sometimes no good deed goes unpunished. So.
Right. Then people would, and so if you don't like what the White House is saying, blame the White House. Don't blame the reporter for sharing the information with you and explaining where it came from. So if you don't like the claim that For America is making, and you think it doesn't hold up to scrutiny, it makes more sense to attack For America.
And I guess the point is, I should have.
If you don't like the way that the story carried on ABC, attack ABC.
And I guess I should have ignored them. I shouldn't have taken them seriously because they're a conservative group, and obviously they're a bunch of coots. Anyway, let me say something good. Let me say something good about the left here. I wrote a rundown at the Daily Caller today praising some liberals that I think took a principled stance. As you probably know by now, Wonket has come under attack and dropped by several sponsors, in fact, for sort of very unseemly mockery of Sarah Palin's Down syndrome son, Trig. And I wanted to give some props out to some liberals here. Kirsten Powers called it sick. Keith Olbermann called it unacceptable and crass. Alan Combs called it totally despicable. Slate's Dave Weigel, who isn't a liberal but is hard to pigeonhole, says, "I'll stick up for any satire that doesn't make fun of a mentally disabled toddler." And Mediaite's Tommy Christopher really led the charge and had a funny quote where he was joking about how he has become the voice of reason, of sanity, and what a sad commentary it is when he's the voice of reason on the internet. So just wanted to give some kudos out.
A side note: the law on the left would not accept that.
And same thing probably with Alan Combs, right? But I think Keith Olbermann, I would guess, has the bona fides.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean some of these folks for various reasons. I mean, Kirsten Powers worked for Bill Clinton. By the way, I like her. Maybe that should disqualify her. And you know who she reminds me of, by the way?
Well,
the chick from Community, the blonde chick from Community. We'll play her in the movie.
I've not watched Community. But, I mean, I didn't want to get into a whole Kristen Powers thing, but there's certainly folks on the left that see her as someone who dons the clothes of a liberal and attacks other liberals a lot. But be that as it may, not the point.
Let me jump in real quick because it raises another point. She goes on Fox. She's a Fox contributor. That's the thing. And the thing is, conservatives who are on MSNBC sometimes get the same criticism. I will say this: it's funny to me that if you go and get softballs pitched to you, if you're a conservative and you go on Fox, or if you're a liberal and you go on MSNBC, you're somehow seen as tough and brave. But if you're willing to go into the enemy's territory, you're a sellout. Guess what? The toughest people are willing to stare down the toughest questions. So that's my...
Well, there is an argument that on the left, there's an argument that you should not go on Fox ever and give them credibility, and not so much they're conservative, that they're partisan propaganda. That's an argument that is made. But there's plenty of people on the left that have gone on. Sure, well, we on the left that don't like that. But there's also a separate argument, which is it's one thing to go on Fox. It's another what you say on Fox. And if someone goes on Fox and gives it their 100% on behalf of liberalism, they're not going to get as much flack as someone who goes on Fox and then attacks other liberals on the guise of being liberal themselves. And I think Kristen Powers probably falls into that camp a little more.
Well, I think we're almost out of time, Bill. By the way, speaking of time, I finally saw Hot Tub Time Machine. So,
Oh,
I know you saw it in the theaters.
I saw it. I saw the sneak preview,
Yeah.
and now it's part of the American cultural canon. So I'm glad you caught up to it.
It's it's our generation's Dr. Zhivago. That's going to be the headline of this. That's going to be it.
You keep stealing
The
my
Weekend
headlines.
Blog, our generation's Dr. Zhivago. If we can figure out how to spell Dr. Zhivago, it will be the headline. Let's leave it there, my friend. Why don't you call up your attack dogs?
They try to drive a wedge between us, Matt, but they can't do it.
The more they try, the closer we get. All they're doing is giving us history, giving us. We're going to look back years from now and laugh at this, Bill.
So I may have a piece in the Daily Caller.
You are welcome to play ping pong here any time you want. There's always a ping.
Well, they're supposedly doing a whole symposium on what part of the government you would eliminate. And I assume because you put a bug in there, they asked me.
So maybe now you'll be the Kirsten Powers.
I might be burning my whole reputation thanks to you.
And then if you ever want to come over to the join the force, leave the dark side, there's a spot for you. There's a ping pong paddle for you.
That's very, very touching. Can I be the Jar Jar Binks of the conservative movement?
Or Chewbacca, whatever you like. All right, bud.
All right, Matt.
Peace out.
I will talk to you with the better vocal cords
in
in a couple of weeks.
See ya.